Hello, and thank you for watching, and welcome to another live session on balancing your productivity and, more importantly, on how you can value your time. Please feel free to share the link or share the recording after the show. My name is Claire Evans, and I'm a time management and productivity coach here to help you to maintain and improve your productivity so that you can create a happier and more fulfilled life in an easier and more naturally balanced way. So this week in these sessions, I want to share information on a particular topic and also give you the opportunity to ask questions, and I'll answer them live on air. Or if you'd like to stick a comment below, then I'm happy to answer after the show if you're catching up on the recording or if you think of something later. If you would like to join me, comment on Facebook or on Smile Time. The link will be in the post. And these sessions run at 4:30 on Wednesday. So if you don't manage to check in live, put it in the diary for the following week. So what I wanted to talk about today, and building on the theme of valuing your time, which I started off a couple of weeks ago, in how you can understand the value of your time and what your hourly rate is. This week's topic is about setting boundaries and expectations. And today I wanted to share with you the importance of boundaries and how you can set expectations and the importance of setting expectations, and also how you can improve the boundaries that you have, or if you don't have any boundaries, how to set them. So one of the things that I often find is that I'm in conversation with busy people who are leading busy lives, and strangely are saying yes to more and more requests coming across their desk. They feel that they're like they're at the beck and call of everyone around them and never seem to have enough time in their day. And it really doesn't have to be that way if you set good boundaries. If you want to be in better control of your life and your work, then you need to decide what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. And that's where boundaries come in, and that's why they are important. So if you have people either knocking on your door, if you work at home, phoning you up, making demands on you at any time of the day and night, then maybe you need to create better boundaries around your time. So just checking if I see people popping up, or if I see a question coming up, then I will answer those as I go along. So thinking about setting better boundaries, I think many people are either afraid of having too rigid boundaries or saying no to clients, customers, friends, family, whoever it might be. But it's really not a very productive way of working to just sort of deal with everything that's coming in and out as and when it comes in. And just because you're saying no, it doesn't mean no right now. It just means no, never. It just means no right now, or now is not the right time. And if you set good boundaries, people will respect your time more, and you'll be able to handle their requests better. What you tend to find is that the people that have poor boundaries, or that are not very good with their boundaries, are more likely to be busy because they're just taking on too much. Their workload's just increasing all the time. They will also be, there's that sort of feeling that you want to be helpful, you want to be seen to be efficient and organised, and that you can take on lots of work, but it's really not a very good way of working. And as soon as you get into that loop, because you say yes, because you keep taking on more work, because you don't have good boundaries, people will just give you more and more work to do, and you just end up in that downward spiral of just getting busier and busier. So it makes sense to have good boundaries, and particularly to value your time. if you value your time, other people will also learn to respect and value it. Something which I'm sure we've all experienced is receiving emails or phone calls from a colleague, from your boss, from a client, either very early in the morning or late at night, particularly with emails. And perhaps you've been guilty of sending those yourself. So sending out emails late at night just because that's when you happen to be working, or early in the morning, or at weekends, or even thinking about this time of year when you're on holiday. So how many people here, as we're getting into holiday time, are expecting to be working while they are on holiday? And I'm sure a lot of people are, and again, I hear it a lot, either people I'm talking to, that I'm working with, that there is this either need or an expectation that they will be working while they're on holiday, that you will have your phone with you, that you'll have your laptop, so you will be able to deal with work. And while technology has given us great flexibility, it can really blur those boundaries. And that's where you need to be very careful that those boundaries aren't getting too stretched, that they're too blurred, so that you end up working all hours, any hours of the day and night, just because the technology is either driving you to do that or you are contactable. So if you have that need or feel there is a need to work, particularly while you're on holiday, said this time of year, it happens a lot. Think about what it says about your working patterns, or even about your workload. Is it realistic that you are working when you should be on holiday? And if your family and friends, family in particular, again, when they're on holiday, are wondering where you are, why you're always attached to your phone, why you're at the computer, or that they never get to see you or spend quality time with you, what does that say about how you work and how good or not your boundaries are? And certainly technology has blurred those boundaries, but just because you can be contacted at any time of the day or night, and that you can deal with work because it's all up in the cloud, it's accessible on your phone or your laptop or your tablet, doesn't mean that you should. And that's where it's good to have boundaries around your time. If there's an expectation that, and particularly in this country, I think we have this expectation that if we're working late, there's that sense of almost sort of, we must be really busy, or we must be really important, or feeling of worth if we're working very late. And if other people are working late around us, or you're in an industry where there is that expectation of working late, then you can get sucked into it. And particularly a lot of the people that I work with, whether it's people in the legal or financial services professional, particularly people that are running their own business, they are working longer and longer hours, catching up on emails either early in the morning or late at night, or doing all the admin tasks. So their working hours stretch. And while you might enjoy the flexibility of working, and that's the great thing that we can be flexible about the way you work, it needs to be balanced, and it needs to be working at a time that suits you and something that you are managing, and it's your choice about when and how you work. So even though we tend to be working longer and longer, it does have a negative impact if there are no boundaries around your time, whether it's flexible or not. So it's certainly something to think about, is the reality of the long hours that you're putting in. Is it something that's really required, or do you need to set better boundaries around your time in order to protect and value your personal time and ensure a much better balance? So, setting expectations is something that is particularly important, because when you, and I mentioned earlier about sending an email late at night, that sets, or early in the morning or after office hours. And equally, responding to it very quickly sets an expectation with the person that you're communicating with. And what you've done is set an expectation that you will have a very quick response. And I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and actually it's a conversation I have quite frequently, where if somebody sends an email and they're used to getting a quick response and the expectation has been set, when that expectation isn't met, in this instance, this person then got a phone call half an hour after the email had been sent, almost to say, why haven't you responded to my email? So be very careful about what expectations you're setting and whether it's the right expectation or whether you're then making things more difficult for yourself by having that very quick response time. Think about what is a reasonable expectation to set, and also the importance of setting expectations up front, so people, particularly the people that you work with, whether it's your colleagues or your clients, know what to expect. If you don't set those boundaries and expectations up front, then they will impose their own expectations and boundaries on you, which may not match up. So it's something to get right from the beginning, is to have very clear boundaries and expectations. So thinking about, what are your office hours? What realistically, or what is to be expected? For the majority of people, it might be 9 to 5, 8 till 6, somewhere in between, your core hours. What is the best way to contact you? Is it via email? And what is the expected response time for email? Is it by phone, landline, or more these days, mobile, or even using facilities such as FaceTime and Skype? And when are the best times to contact you? And I think particularly with email and phone calls is to set boundaries around that time as to when you will respond and when you can be contacted. Just because your mobile phone rings at 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening, and if it's a work phone or if you recognise it's a work-related number, you don't have to answer it. You don't have to deal with it there and then. Let it go through to voicemail. You can then listen to the message if they've left one, and then decide when and how you're going to deal with it. And think about how quickly you need to respond to emails and phone calls, and also what your clients' expectations are for that. They may well be more than happy that if they send you an email, that they get a response within a couple of hours, within the same day, or even by the following day. So know what a realistic expectation is, and let people know that that's what you do. You can put it in an auto response message on emails. You can have it on your voicemail, or you can have it on your out of office message, or you can even have it in communication that you send out, setting the expectations. And keep your work and communication with your colleagues and your clients within office hours as much as you can. And not only does that mean that other people will respect your time if they know that if they give you a call at 8 o'clock, they're not likely to get a response, but also it respects other people's time. So if you need to get hold of somebody, think about, is this overstepping their boundaries? And are you actually going to expect to get a response? Again, there will be exceptions. There will be times when you need to get hold of somebody urgently, and you need to have that flexibility, but it doesn't mean that every single time you get a phone call late at night, in the evenings, at the weekends, that you need to respond to it there and then. You might want to get back and say, yes, I've got it. I will deal with it tomorrow morning as soon as I get into the office if it is something urgent. I was working with someone a while ago now, and they had a client who was particularly demanding and was phoning them at all times of the evening and at weekends, and everything was always urgent because they were very responsive and they wanted to manage and deal with this client and give them the best service that they could. They kept responding, and dealing with every request that was coming in. Whereas if they'd actually been able to step back and set some boundaries to say, I can't deal with that right now, but I will deal with it first thing in the morning. Because to a certain extent, if somebody wants us to deal with something outside of office hours, the chances are you can't get hold of other people that you may need to anyway. So as long as you communicate that and you set that up front, it makes your life much easier, and also it's a lot less stressful. Think about how critical or important it is that you respond to these requests immediately. And particularly I've found, again, talking to people, that where they've set the expectation that they will deal with it immediately or go off and get on with that, it can take a while to reset those boundaries. If they've always said yes, if they've always done something as soon as they're asked, whether it's evening, weekends, resetting that boundary can take a little time for the other person to adjust to, oh, okay, I needn't expect an instant response because it's out of hours, it's an evening, it's a weekend. And I think that's something that is so important. It's your time. You should be spending it how you want. And the more you can focus on the time outside of work, then you're going to have a much better balance and quality to your life if you're not constantly worrying about that. And it's something, again, I hear a lot with people who, particularly running your own business, or even if you're very busy at work, of feeling guilty when you're not working, that you should be working because there's so much work to do. So you're not really focusing on the people that you're with, whether it's your family or your friends. And vice versa, when you are spending time with them, you're thinking about all the work things going on. So if you can create clear boundaries or better boundaries around work, then it makes things a lot easier. So be very clear about your boundaries up front, and think about them in your own mind. What is your good boundaries for you? And also with working long hours, if you don't have a set finish time and say, right, today I'm going to finish work at 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, there's a tendency to just keep working and, oh, I'll just finish that task off, or I'll just get that done. And you end up working longer and longer hours, and you just keep working until you've finished everything that needs to be done, then you go home. Rather than, if you know you've got to finish at a certain time, you're more likely to stay focused and less distracted and just get on with that task and get it finished in time, because you know you have that imposed deadline. And maybe even set up an appointment or a meeting or a social engagement that you can't change. I'm sure you know those instances where when you do have a set end time or somewhere you need to be at a certain time, you will do everything you need to do to get out of the door in time for that. Or if you don't, that's another issue, which I'll discuss in a later session. So if you find that you're constantly juggling different priorities and having more and more work piled onto you, then think about where your boundaries are and whether that is what is giving you that extra workload, or the inefficiencies, or the constant urgent things that are coming up. Something also to think about, especially these days with a lot of open plan offices, is the physical boundaries that you have, with not having any boundaries around us in terms of offices that we work in, open plan, cubicles. You have the added lack of boundary for people actually coming into your space or up to your desk with that sort of, have you got a minute, because you're there and they can see you're there. So think about either using something like noise cancelling headphones to block out some of the physical noise that can be around you, or if you need to get away, go and book a meeting room or arrange to work from home, so you can have that sort of boundary between your office and where you're working and how you're working. If somebody oversteps a boundary, then you need to think about how you're going to deal with it. Is it something that you need to deal with and manage there and then, or is it something that you can deal with later? And also create clear boundaries around the technology that you use for work. As I said, these days technology, cloud technology, having everything on our mobile devices, on our tablets, on our laptops means that we can essentially be working anytime, anywhere. Have those boundaries around when you stop work and when you're not working, and when you are working, even if it's with you. And maybe try that for the next week. If you're not very good with those boundaries, in that if an email pops up on your phone that you're going to go and look at it, think about, is this work time or is this personal time? I will discuss on a later session in particular, because email is such a major topic for people, how you can set boundaries and how you can manage and deal with emails in particular. So either switch it off or just don't respond to work-related emails or phone calls. Yes, you know your work, and you know that if something urgent comes in, you can see it, but you don't need to instantly respond to everything. So if you have good boundaries, you're much better able to focus on work when you're in work, and focus on you and what you want and the people around you when you're not in work, if you have those clear boundaries. And it takes away that guilt of, as I said earlier, about feeling that you should be working when you're with your family, or that when you're at work that you should be spending time with them. So check your boundaries and think about whether they're unclear or not really well defined, and what you can do to improve the boundaries that you have, set better expectations to give you more control over your time. And if you would like to get in touch about ways that you can create and maintain your own boundaries, then please do. And next week, I am going to look at how you can add value to your time and value your time more by managing the interruptions and distractions that we get day in, day out, every hour of every day. So until then, thank you for watching. And I haven't seen any questions pop up, but as I said, if you do have any comments or questions, please pop them in below, and join me next week, 4:30 on Wednesday. And so get in touch if you've got any questions or comments, and please share this video and take a look at my website for any additional information on the blog, or have a look at the free time audit that is on there. And if there's something I can do to help, please feel free to ask.